that sort of brings me on to sort of the last bit, really, which is just a very simple outline of what you need in an online press release. It's a good idea just to have, I'm not saying this has to be a super professional, media savvy, like mail out to thousands and thousands of people, but it's a good idea just to have sort of like a one sheet where you can get everything that you need on it, just explain what's happening in the gig, all the basics that we've gone over before, and basically everything we've covered, but in an online format that you can mail out to people. And just when you're first compiling that information, it would be a good point to write up an online press release where you just sort of, which you can send out to the venue if they're say going to post something about the gig. It's really, people like it when you make it easy for them. So you want your press shot, you want all the essential details, just write it as like a story that would go on the website basically for these places, and then send it out to them. Send it out to your gig listings, websites, local press if you think you're going to gauge in, have any luck there. It's sort of probably worth waiting a bit before you go for press. Yeah, and basically any friends, college paper. I don't know whether you guys if you guys go here and if you have like a college newsletter or anything like email newsletter or a paper or anything like that. Again, if you write all this up and then you can email it to that person, then they've got it all basically. And as you go into, I don't know, maybe some of you go to university or might go on to other educational places, there's going to be in-house papers and sort of magazines, websites, that sort of thing. So it's really useful. So on that, you sort of really need to make sure you got all the basics, as well as are there any other bonuses? What's the sell of the gig, basically? What do you want people to get from that press release? Then you want to write a few lines about each band, if they've got press quotes as well. This is for the promoters here, rather than if you're just in a band yourself, and you're writing about several bands. Again, this is a really good chance to bring in sort of Facebook, SoundCloud links, Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff as well, so they can post this on their websites. You might have local blogs. You might want to start a local blog and just put stuff on it, because you never know how much traction. If there's no one else doing it, it could be worth it. And also, yeah, really importantly, attach a JPEG of your flyer or whatever you're using to promote the gig, poster or whatnot. Okay, so pretty much there, I think. So in summary, we've talked about, basically, you start off, you want to get your information together, all the basics, times, locations, prices, dates, all of that stuff. Compile it all together, and write your press release, make your Facebook page, and start thinking about your flyer design, basically. And you want to design your flyer, you want to get the essential information on there, you want to think about who you're trying to attract with that flyer, what you want them to take from it, and yeah, the sort of mood of the gig you're trying to convey. Then you've got to distribute it through the various methods we discussed, hanging around toilets, that sort of thing. Yeah, and then you send out your press release with a picture. You make sure it's going to relevant people. And then, like we say, with Facebook, you build it up. And you build up steam. So by the time you reach the gig, people will hopefully have seen your flyers, or they will have read a website, or they will have seen your Facebook group, or your friends will have shared it on Facebook. And you'll get people to the gig. And that's basically the process. There's just a few things that are useful tips to remember when you do this. All of it is about timing. You've got to allow yourself a good period of time to get this sorted. If you do it the night before the gig, you're going to be disappointed. You're not going to feel the results of your efforts. If you do it 4 weeks before the gig and keep it up, then you will notice the difference. And if you do that repeatedly, you're really going to start seeing people start to turn up, I think. Use people is the other thing to take from this. If you've got a friend that's handy with Photoshop, if you've got a friend that's good with a pencil, convince them that they definitely can't have a better path in life than designing flyers for your band, basically. Sell it to them however you want, buy them drinks or whatever, just treat them nice. And if they're going to do, and if people are doing you favors, treat them nicely as well. It's really important to remember. It's cliche, but you get out what you put in, basically. None of these are like miracle solutions, and it's really going to be a combination of doing all these things and keeping it up that's going to like make things pay off for you, basically. It's hard work, and you need to sustain it, but it can be massively satisfying if it works. Plus, anything you enjoy doesn't really feel like work, I find. And they keep telling me that at work, so that's useful. And yeah, again, even if things don't pan out the first time, you shouldn't be disheartened, because it does take a lot of experimentation. Like, just take note of what works for you and what seems to pay off, and how people, and repeat that. It's a process of experimentation. And then finally, even if, nothing else comes out of it, this is all stuff that's going to be really applicable later in life. I'm sure at this stage in your lives, everyone's going, oh, it's going to be good for your CV if you do this, and, and starting to tell you things like that. But it really is, like, the stuff that you do now can make a massive difference. I mean, I'm convinced that I only do what I do now because I started a website when I was like 14, writing reviews, and then I carried that on and it gathered traction, and then, and then eventually wound up writing for a national magazine. And yeah, so it might not necessarily take you where you think it's going to, but it could all be really useful. So if you happen to have designed a flyer, or if you promoted a gig, or you've written press releases, this is all stuff that's actually really genuinely useful in many walks of life. If you can shape text, if you design's just brilliant for all sorts of things, and just basically getting out there and meeting people is going to probably be the one thing that will really pay off out of the whole thing. In music, it's just really important that you are just friendly and approachable, and you just get out there and meet as many people as possible, and enjoy doing it. And yeah, that is basically the secret to it all, I think. Yeah, it's not what you know, it's who you know, which again is a cliche, but it's true, and it's not necessarily who you know, it's who you're not a dick to, basically. Yeah, it's important not to have an ego. I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying you have to like kiss a lot of ass, but just handle yourself like you want to be, approach yourself, and that's going to pay off. And that's all I got for you, I'm afraid.
Thank you. Before we get